Joan Sutherland was born in Sydney, Australia, to Scottish immigrants in 1926. Her vocal talents were recognized early on while singing in local concerts and contests. Following a year at the Royal College of Music in London, she made her debut at Covent Garden's company in Mozart's Magic Flute. With her husband, conductor Richard Boyning, she has performed in great opera houses all over the world. Although she's now being retired for more than 7 years, she is still known as the unparalleled operatic voice of the century. Her recently published autobiography is called A Prima Donna's Progress, and I am pleased to have with us Dame Joan Sutherland. Welcome. You were smiling when I said that. Would you quarrel with any of that?
Wow, you know, if people think so, then that's great.
Exactly. You cannot be a great opera star, prima donna, diva, enchant audiences unless you have a huge voice and a huge ego to go with it. True or false?
I didn't have really very much ego at all. I just wanted to sing at Covent Garden, and when I got to Covent Garden, I was perfectly happy. The career took over. I never really thought I had the voice that other people did. So there we are.
Let me talk a little bit about that, because Richard, your husband,
yes,
helped you define what you ought to do with that voice.
That's quite right. That's quite right. I had a voice, and I had studied singing, and I had sort of put myself in within a certain repertoire. I thought I was going to sing the more dramatic roles, the Wagner roles, but at the time I was doing that, I was actually really putting a lid on the upper part of the voice, and the upper range was there, and he found that it was there, and he just opened it all up for me and said, you know, you really should be singing the bel canto repertoire, not the heavier repertoire at all. And we worked on it, and after 7 years at Covent Garden, they gave me Lucia to perform, which turned me into an international star.
I want to come back to what else people said, but here is you singing Lucia at the Metropolitan Opera, 1983. Take a look at this performance, Dame Joan Sutherland. Back to Covent Garden and what this role and other roles. Were your parents satisfied? I mean, did they agree with what Richard believed in? With
well, my father was already dead, actually. Yeah. He died already when I was 6 years old. Yeah, and your mom? My mother was not convinced that it was the way for me to go. She had thought that my voice was better in the lower register and meant to stay in the lower register. But the performances of Lucia really convinced her. Yeah. Yes.
But you also trusted Richard, and you went with his...
Oh, definitely. Oh, I had to trust myself, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go on. I really had to feel that I was doing the right thing myself, and Mother sort of all the time interjecting and saying, you know, I'm not sure it's right, dear, was not helpful, but on the other hand, she really came round.
In the equation that marks your career, how much of it is what you were born with and something else?
Well, I certainly was born with a voice. I don't remember when I didn't sing, but you can't just rest on that. You have to work on it. You have to perfect a technique. You have to improve yourself all the time. It never stops. You never stop trying to improve the voice and the presentation of whatever role you're doing.
Apart from the presentation, improving the voice is the command so that the voice does exactly what your head tells it to, and your heart.
That's right. You have to know exactly what the voice is going to do when you command it.
Yeah.
You have to work on the voice and continue to work on technique, even though you might have had huge successes. You can't just sit back and think, oh, great, I've had a success, goody.
What was it the doctor told you when it came time to take out your tonsils or not take out your tonsils?
He said to my mum he thought I might be able to sing, yes.
How was it to put all this in a book? Was it cathartic? Was it what?
Well, I couldn't believe that I'd done as much as I had. I was lucky. I had good references to look up. We'd kept a pretty good archive, and it was amazing to me to go back and look through all the papers and programs and diaries and things that we had kept, and to realise that we didn't stop moving around. We always seemed to be flying somewhere.
And how many of those concerts and many of those performances did Richard conduct?
Oh, he didn't start to conduct until about 1961, 62. And after that, we mostly worked together.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Because why?
Well, as I say, we worked on the roles together. We learned the roles together. And if he was conducting, it meant that I didn't have to rehearse quite as much, or that at least he knew what between us we were going to do, so that he really had to look after the rest of the people in the performance. And I really could know that I would be able to sing the way we'd worked it out, whereas if you go have another conductor, then you have to work with them and probably give and take a little bit, you know.
What would have been, when you look at it and when you thought about it, when you went back and looked at everything, the great moments for you? What really are deep inside of you as those times that I remember with the greatest?
Well, I mean, to actually sing the first time at Covent Garden, I was singing the First Lady in the Magic Flute. That was, to me, what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing at Covent Garden, and I thought that would be it. And I would perhaps...
And Mozart's a good place to start.
Oh, you bet. Nothing better than Mozart and Handel for the voice.
Yeah. But what else? What other performances?
The Lucia. I mean, it was incredible. The acceptance of the public and the sudden international fame. I think the first time I sang in Italy, because Italy was somewhere where I thought, well, I mean, one day I might get to Italy to sing, but this was a fantastic debut. And the first night at the Met, the first night, the debut I made with Marilyn Horne in New York in Town Hall.
So what you remember mostly are those first moments when you first set foot on a stage
on a different place. Yes. Japan too was another incredible reception.
Yeah. Audiences differ in their appreciation or how they react to opera around the world? You don't notice
Not really. I don't think there's much difference. They sure let you know if they like you, and they let you know if they don't.
Wherever you go. And the intensity of the applause and the intensity of lack of satisfaction is present in opera.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You're not, it registers one way or the other.
Well, I think you can tell when you are performing whether the audience is enjoying it or not. I mean, you're delivering something to them, and the electricity works the other way as well. You get the feeling of whether they're listening or whether they're not.
Good audiences can make you better.
Yes, yes.
And what happens if you don't think you're connecting? What do you do then?
Well, try not to try too hard.
Try not to try too hard.
Try and relax, yes.
Yeah. And almost by trying too hard and pushing, you just damage it worse.
That's right.
Yeah. Anything that you most desperately wanted to do that you didn't do, either a role or a place or a tenor you wanted to sing?
Not desperately. I was pretty lucky with the tenors I sang with, believe me.
Yeah.
I sang with them great singers. I would have liked to have done more comedy roles. I loved doing the comedies. I would have loved to have done Don Pasquale. But by the time there was time to do it, I was really rather old to start getting out there. But no, I was lucky. I did pretty much what I wanted to do.
Other than your own, excluding your own, whose voice enchanted you the most?
Flagstad, Tebaldi.
Tebaldi.
Callas was absolutely fantastic. It was totally different from either of them, but it was high-powered and fantastic. The impression she made, I sang as a handmaid in Norma in my first season at Covent Garden, and the impression she made was just incredible. And she was very humble and very sweet to me. She's sort of
helpful?
Very, very. Yeah. And she was a worker, my goodness.
But brilliant as an actress too.
In some cases it was a bit hammy.
Was it? No.
But it told. It was full of a certain expression, yes.
What about male voices?
Well, I sang with a few good ones of those too. I had Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, Alfredo Kraus, goodness me, Gyaroff. Gracious me, I can't think of them all. I'm suffering from a senior debility.
Well, no. Would you do anything differently?
No, I don't think so. I really don't.
It worked out pretty well.
It's wonderful. Better than I ever imagined, really. The career just took over.
Yeah.
Sort of was like a breaker, like a wave, taking you on and on and on.
You were riding the crest of a wave, and it kept
going
and going and going.
Yes.
Yeah. No regrets?
No, not really. Not really. How could I have? It was just a wonderful, wonderful career.
Yeah. How is opera doing today?
Well, I, of course, don't like some of the updated productions that I've seen.
Because they're too, what, the interpretation is too contemporary?
They don't fit in with, to me, they don't match the music. They don't match the libretto of the piece, they don't match the music, and one wants to see the traditional period of them. They update them, and you think, you know, how can Traviata be done in this period? It just wouldn't work. Socially, it would be a completely different situation.
This book, The Autobiography of Joan Sutherland, A Prima Donna's Progress, an extraordinary life in the operatic world. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.
Thank you.